What's the weirdest way you accidentally discovered your intimate fantasy? Story 1. In college, my girlfriend, the one I lost my V card to, had very strict parents. I wasn't allowed to come to her home, or vice versa, after they found a rubber stashed in her nightstand. I was allowed to before, but only for class-related stuff, and always under supervision. After they found the rubber, however, we weren't allowed to meet in private at all anymore. We were allowed to meet at the local mall after school, however, because who in their right mind would bang in a mall, right? Fast forward, two horny people pounding in a stairwell at the mall's parking lot. We did this very often, never got caught because people are lazy. Nobody ever took the stairs because the elevator was right next to it. That's how I developed my thing for risky banging in public places and learned the lesson to never try to keep adolescent people from doing it. That is an unstoppable force, and they will find a way no matter what. Trying to stop it will only cause problems, like acute, for example, protection safety problems, but can also lead to psychological problems, guilt and shame down the line. Before we continue, do us a quick favor, smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. I met my wife because of a nasty auto accident. She was the EMT that kept me alive on the way to the hospital. We dated for a little over a year before getting engaged. So these events happened about 3 years or so after the accident. One Monday morning, after an awesome bedtime session, we went back to Pound Town. And I kept going and going with no results for me. She had to stop after having had multiple peaks of her own over the course of an hour. We went about our morning routine, and I didn't show even an inkling of turning softy. No matter how I ignored it, thought about gross things, took an extended cold shower, nothing. So, after about 2 hours with no sign of flagging, we both called our work and said that I might need to go to the ER. Said. We tried watching one of our horror movies, then a comedy, but nothing. So we headed for the ER. Our area, at the time, had one actual hospital with an ER. Most of the people my wife encountered as an EMT that needed attention wound up there. So she was good friends with the doctors, nurses, and the rest of the staff. The chief nurse that more or less ran the ER was the one that saw us first. Then she had one of the doctors come in to verify the diagnosis. Everyone agreed it was the medicine. They gave me meds to counter some symptoms and others to counteract my medications more directly. Then my wife and the nurse discussed the painful process of draining the blood with thick gauge needles. Then she asked if we wanted to try a more natural process first. We both did. The chief nurse told my wife to give me a massage between my dong and buns. Here is where the sheltered upbringing comes into play. We knew what it was, but had no idea how it was massaged. And as neither of us wanted me to get jabbed and drained, my wife asked her to show how it is done. I can't even begin to describe how mind-numbingly awesome it was. The nurse showed the motion externally first, then she did it on me. Then she had my wife do it. The nurse offered pointers as she did it. It was all starting to get solid reactions from me. After a while, she told my wife to use her other hand to operate my dong and said she would step out for this part. To facilitate the actions better, my wife stood. She had her finger on her right hand massage me, her left on the lower portion of my dong, polishing it, then was suctioning the soul out of me. Within a couple of minutes of the threefold stimulation, I was euphoric. It was by far the best I had experienced by that point in time. I finally deflated after a short period. We were sent home with a slew of meds modifications for my current meds and care instructions. We spent most of the rest of that day at home, bare on the couch with her laying her head on my lap and frequently examining my tools. It had made her feel powerful, so we were both into giving and receiving at the back door the rest of her life. I still think about it all the time. Story 3. I was at an amusement park that my company had rented out, where the lines were short or non-existent. A young girl operating one of the rides waved me and a coworker over, and early in the conversation, she casually suggested we should go out. Surprised, I asked, "Honey, how old are you?" She quickly flashed her driver's license. 18 and about 6 months old. I handed it back with a serious, disapproving look, and her eager expression faded as she looked down at her shoes. I told her gently, "Girl, I think I'm too old for you." She looked up and asked, "How old are you?" I replied, 36. She glanced up just enough to meet my eyes, a mischievous grin spreading across her face as she said, "That's okay. I love older men. I'm just a naughty girl like that." And that's when I realized I'm into women half my age. Edit. Yeah, we definitely banged. She was all in, and we tried everything, and I was the first to get invited behind the scenes, if you catch my drift. The best part? She lived with her mom, a nurse working night shifts. I'd sneak over around midnight and slip out between 4 and 5 a.m. It felt like living inside a penthouse forum fantasy, night after night. Story 4. I always hated smoking. I was born in the 70s. People smoked everywhere, and I hated it. Cut to today, my wife loves smoking, and I persuaded her to quit because it is a bad habit health-wise. She of course agrees and has quit. Anyway, I now want her to smoke because she is so damn hot while she does it. It excites me. I want her to give me a H job while smoking, not focusing on the hand part, just aimlessly doing it. That is what happened once I discovered this liking, and I'd like to recreate that. I haven't told her. I also would like to do it Scooby-Doo style while she smokes, but I really don't want her to start smoking again. I guess I'll keep this to Reddit and my dirty mind. Story 5. I was playing in a swimming pool with my cousin, and she sat in front of me on a floating lilo. It was a sunny day, and the water was perfect. My cousin pushed her bum back into my dong, and I held on to her so we wouldn't fall off while we paddled around together. Immediate stiffy. She noticed and looked back at me with a twinkle in her eye and a gorgeous smile and pushed back against me a little harder. And that's how people get a liking for family business, if you know what I mean. Story 6. The first occasion happened last week, and then I kind of fully realized it last night. But anyway, my fiance and I were in bed, making out, and he knows I find masked men hot, especially ones like Ghostface, Ghost, Michael Myers, etc. And we've done it a few times after Halloween and Comic-Con as Ghost from COD, and I've mostly done Rogue from X-Men '97 for him, or Claire Redfield from Resident Evil. So I kind of mentioned to him one day that I wanted to try it as Ghostface, and we'd been joking about it for a while. So we get done making out. Nothing out of the line happened at this point. Sometimes we just make out, because why not? We're dumb and in love. But then he just looks at his ghost face mask, the red one with devil horns. He's got a collection of horror masks, and he turns back to me and says, "I wonder what would happen if I started playing with you with the ghost face mask." I didn't think he was serious, and I just laughed and jokingly dared him to do it. And holy crap, let me tell you, the way he towered over me with his strong, muscly arms, and this ghost face mask made me euphoric quicker than I ever have, like ever. So that night it was definitely confirmed I have a thing for masked men. But last night he got the same mask and pounded the crap out of me, but had the lights dimmed to red. He looked so intimidating just towering over me in his ghost face mask, but oh my God, I never moaned so loud in my life. I'm 100% sure our neighbors heard us. Long story short, I have a thing for intimidation now. Story 7. I have many correlated ones that were born together. Pear-shaped, curvy women with wide hips, fuller legs, and natural marks like cellulite and stretch marks, along with some extra weight. I saw a woman at the beach who was very bottom-heavy, with some of the widest and thickest hips and legs I've ever seen, along with a noticeable belly. She wore a two-piece swimsuit that left much of her body uncovered. Her belly showed small stretch marks and rested gently towards the lower part. Her thighs had visible rolls in texture, and the same went for her hips and bun cheeks. When she took off her sweatpants, her body moved with a soft, natural wobble. As she walked toward the sea, her whole body continued to move with that gentle motion. It might seem unusual to some, but I found it strangely captivating, so much so that I ended up pouring out my smoothie. Later, as she struggled a bit with her pants and adjusted them, it was a charming, real moment that stuck with me. And it makes me understand why one of my favorite Instagram models is Love Randolin. Story 8. I have a couple I have come to realize and embrace over the years. I have always given light massages to family and friends, but one day a straight buddy complained that he had sore feet after working all day. I offered him a foot rub, and he practically melted. I continued to massage his feet at his request, and eventually a couple other friends or boyfriends. One day I realized I liked it more than just helping out, but then felt kinda guilty at how hot it got me. Another one is giving blowies. In my early 20s, I lived with a female best friend and her straight brother at their parents' house. I worked with him and would sleep in his room on the floor at the foot of the bed. One night, he is tossing and turning and making a lot of noise. I look up and see his huge dong out of his boxers. I tried to wake him up, but every time I called his name, he just flexed his dong. As a slightly inexperienced gay boy, I was about to pass out. My heart was racing. I went for it and gave him a blowy until he reached the finish line. He then said, "Thanks, man," and we went to bed. The next night before bed, he said, "Hey man, tonight you don't need to wait till I'm asleep," and winked at me. I continued to service him without reciprocation for the couple years we lived together. He would mostly watch straight corn, and I would give him blowies. When he'd nut done and I'd go into my room for some private time myself, we never talked about it outside the act, and no one ever knew he was getting regular blowy from his roommate, including his sister, my friend. To this day, when I reconnect with their family, we often find the time for him to get his popsicle tasted. Lately, I've realized I'm really drawn to guys with a bit of a fuller build, especially those with a softer, rounder stomach paired with a solid upper body. It's that look where someone might have been leaner when they were younger, but put on some weight over time, and it just suits them. If he's also got a strong lower half, that definitely catches my attention. Story 9. I was young when I let a girlfriend stay at a guy's house, her mutual friend, for a week in another city, as she needed accommodation in that city to study. The guy was really nice and genuine. He had a housemate that my girlfriend found very attractive and was known as a player. He was older, which was what she was into at the time. A group of them were going out one night and had snuck my girlfriend into a club with a fake ID. My girlfriend was wearing a dress that I really liked and had bought her. She was sending me photos of her all night, looking sexy. When they got home, my girlfriend called me from the balcony and told me that the housemate had held her waist and asked me if she should leave or what she should say to him, as she didn't want to stay there if it annoyed me. I was already all excited from the photos she had sent me while in the clubs. I felt a huge rush and told her to smash with him, as I knew she found him sexy. My girlfriend asked if I was really sure. The only condition was if they used a rubber, and she told me all about it. She called me after the first time, still puffing. She wanted to say goodnight, but I had just discovered my thing and could not sleep. Once she got home, we had banged a lot. I am still trying to find that scenario with my current girlfriend. Story 10. Pressure points. Oh my God. A few years ago, I was on a flight home from a school trip to Williamsburg, Virginia. I had the aisle seat, and sitting next to me was a female friend I'd recently developed a crush on. I'm a guy, by the way. At the time, I didn't realize she had a thing for me too. But looking back, it's pretty obvious now. Anyway, she fell asleep and rested her head on my shoulder. I wasn't complaining. My crush using me as a pillow? Definitely a win. But then I noticed something strange. Her finger had ended up in that little spot behind my knee, right where a pressure point is. I didn't think much of it until her finger started twitching every so often. Every time it did, my leg would spasm a little. It felt kind of weird but oddly calming, so I didn't move. You know that rule where if a dog falls asleep on your lap, you're not allowed to move? Same rule applies when a girl falls asleep on you, apparently. Eventually, I started feeling a little dizzy, and my best friend leaned over and asked if I was okay. I said no. And then everything went black. My eyes rolled up, and I slumped forward. Apparently, I passed out until the plane landed. When I came to, I felt this overwhelming rush of energy and bing, bang, boom. I had the biggest O ever and had to sit back down because it hit me all at once. Ever since then, I've had a weird fascination with pressure points. There's something about the way they affect the body that totally intrigues me. It's even evolved into a kind of fascination with gentle control and sensitivity in close interactions. Story 11. One night back in college, I was drunk at a bar chatting with this older, full-figured woman. She looked me over and said, "You're cute, but I don't know if you can handle me." I just smiled and told her, "Try me. Do your worst." So I went home with her and had the most intense O of my life till that point. We actually ended up hooking up on and off throughout my senior year. She was single but traveled a lot for work with business all over the country, so it turned into more of a whenever she was in town and wanted it kind of situation. I found out I'm really into slightly older, full-figured women who are top bun in bed. And let me tell you guys, This has been an extremely difficult fantasy to fulfill on an even remotely consistent basis. Story 12. When I was around 14, I was jumping on a trampoline with one of my close girlfriends. After a while, we laid down to catch our breath, and she playfully put her feet on me, eventually messing around and pressing them against my face. Let's just say my shorts elastic waistband was really put to the test that day. Story 13. When I was younger, I needed some extra help dealing with mild dyslexia. In third grade, I stayed after school 3 times a week to work with a teacher. I didn't fully realize it at the time, but she was in her 20s and seriously attractive. One thing that always stood out, she always wore boots, ankle boots, knee highs, over the knees, leather, suede, black, brown, you name it. She rocked it. So my first real experience regularly spending time alone with a woman, aside from my mom, was with this attractive teacher who helped me with reading and grammar. And since she was always wearing boots, my young brain must have wired a connection between boots and being around a beautiful woman. Boot thing? Check. Teacher thing? Check. Reading or grammar thing? Not so much. Story 14. Before I get into this story, just want to say, I'm totally fine. It wasn't traumatic. I'm not in denial, and I don't feel any pressure to man up or just get over it. I was spending a night with a girl I wasn't all that into. She was really into me, and honestly, I just wanted to get laid. The problem was, I couldn't keep my little guy up. I felt super awkward and kind of embarrassed. Maybe for her, maybe for myself. I'm not even sure. I told her, I'm really sorry, but I don't think it's gonna happen. I should probably go. I started to sit up and gently tried to move her off me, but she pushed me back down with both hands on my chest. So I just laid there while she did her thing, even though my rocket never fully launched. Then I thought, I said I wanted to stop, but she's still going. You know what? This is actually kind of fun. Like I am stot A quoting you. Then out of nowhere, boom, the bat signal lit up. I felt like nothing more than a piece of meat, a tool she was using with zero concern for my comfort. And I absolutely loved it. Yeah, it's a weird story, and I know some people might call it problematic, but it's the truth, and honestly, I'm totally okay with it. Story 15. When I was 19, I was making out with a girl in her dorm room. We were touching each other quietly, trying not to wake her roommate. Things got to unbuttoning and tugging at clothes when she suddenly gasped, "Stop." I pulled back, but then she'd pull me back in to kiss and touch me some more. This back and forth happened again, with her saying, "No," but then leading me right back in. The third time she protested, and I pulled away. She let out a frustrated huff, took my face in her hands, looked me straight in the eyes and said, "I want you to SA me." The confused look on my face must have made her explain further. She basically said that whatever she does to pin her down or keep her quiet is just part of it. I was hesitant but excited at the same time, so I asked about a safe word. She smiled and said, "Yeah, fine, pineapple. If I say pineapple, you stop." I probably made some unsure noise, because then her roommate suddenly blurted out, "Dude, just go ahead and pound her. This is her thing, and I'm never asleep when she does it." Having another woman there confirming it was normal for her was enough to push my fears aside and dive in recklessly. Turns out, I'm really into things on the wilder side, so much so that I've probably spent more on metal and leather gear than a hardcore gamer spends on snacks and screen time. Before anyone jumps to conclusions, I'm forcing this on someone who's not into it. Just hold up and hear me out. There are way more women than you'd expect who enjoy it like this. It's not about fantasies of SA or anything like that, just intense kind of intimacy. Sometimes she's the stronger one, and sometimes I am. People who enjoy this kind of play are like potheads. They recognize each other and drop subtle hints. Once we know we're on the same wavelength, there's open communication about boundaries, desires, and safe words or signals. We're all just people helping people. Story 16. I came home early one day and found my boyfriend sitting in our bedroom, tying his combat boots, wearing one of my skirts and dark eyeliner. He's really tall, about 6'3", while I'm only 5'4", so the pleated skirt that hit my knees looked more like a mini on him. And the way he was sitting, I could catch glimpses of. Honestly, before that moment, our relationship had been struggling. We were pretty vanilla in bed and had been growing distant in every way, both emotionally and physically. It was a really tough period for us. Anyway, I stood frozen in the doorway, and he froze when he saw me. Amid a whirlwind of totally confusing emotions, something clear emerged, something like a huge, intense crush. It felt like seeing someone who was way out of my league, and the ache of knowing I'd probably never have a chance with them. That's the best way I can describe it. Physically, I was so excited, it actually felt painful. I'd never really given men in drag a second thought, never had any reaction or fantasies about it. It just wasn't something I'd ever considered. But seeing him in that skirt, boots, and eyeliner hit me like a tidal wave, not just physically, but emotionally too. I honestly can't believe I never knew that feeling was inside me. The intensity was unreal. And as a happy ending, that day completely changed our relationship. It was like that side of him was exactly what I needed, and being able to express it, with me loving that part of him, was what he'd been missing. We've been together for 4 years since, and honestly, I can't imagine anyone else looking so good in my clothes or making me feel the way he does. Story 17. When I was at university, a friend and I were chatting about sleep habits, and I mentioned how hard it was for me to stay in bed if I couldn't fall asleep. She joked that she should tie me down so I couldn't get up. I laughed it off, saying she'd never actually do that. But then one night at a house party, I found myself gently restrained on a bed. Surprisingly, I found it really exciting. Nothing ever happened between us beyond that. But that night sparked a new liking for me, one where safe words and clear boundaries are always part of the experience. Story 18. I used to have this worn-out button-up shirt that I'd lounge around the house in. It used to drive my wife a little crazy. To be fair, it wasn't exactly stylish or practical, just my go-to comfy gear at home. One morning, she was cutting up some old clothes into rags for cleaning when she spotted me in my trusty tattered shirt. She told me I needed to get rid of it. I just smirked and said, "Make me." Without missing a beat, she came over, straddled me, and kissed me deeply. While doing that, she grabbed the shirt with both hands and gave it a hard tug. Buttons popped off, flying across the room. The sound of the fabric tearing and the sensation of it ripping against my skin. Let's just say, that was an instant ticket to Stiffy City. She pulled away, looking thrilled and a little mischievous, like the naughty girl who just ruined my clothes. Meanwhile, I was totally caught up in how insanely sexy she looked, ripping my shirt off with that primal energy. Turns out, my thing is clothes shredding. Now we keep something a little too worn in our dresser just for those moments. Problem is, I'm sitting at work thinking about it. And damn, I'm in Stiffy City all over again. Story 19. So I was with my boyfriend at the time, and he asked if I wanted to hit up the high school library, which was code for let's go have some fun. I agreed and went along, but he was in a pretty grumpy mood that day. When he started kissing me, he slipped his hand around my neck, not enough to hurt, just enough to make me gasp. I actually moaned, and he laughed, calling me his cheeky little troublemaker while giving me a playful squeeze. Usually, he's gentle, and that's what gets me. But that day, by the time we left, my knees were jelly, and well, let's just say I could have watered a small garden. Story 20. When I was 21, I had a friend with benefits who was in her 40s, a fuller-figured woman with impressively large jugs that naturally settled low, almost down to her belly button. The first time I saw her jugs gently fall into place, I realized I was done with little perky ones. From then on, I was all about those big, relaxed curves. One night, she asked if I wanted to watch some corn together. We'd take turns picking what to watch, her choice, then mine, back and forth, making it a fun shared thing. I'd usually pick big jugs or BBW ones at first, so she would compare herself to the thin girls and get depressed while she'd pick DPGB ones. After a few of these, I asked her what she liked about those, and she said she always felt fat and ugly, and the idea that multiple guys wanted to be with her was a huge thing for her. That night, we explored all the thing that we could, and found out that I had a thing for GB as well. Story 21. I went home with a girl, both of us completely hammered. There had been zero flirting, no intimate vibes, nothing at all. I took her back to my place since she lived pretty far from where we were partying, and told her she could crash into my bed while I'd take the couch. Once we got home, I headed to my room to change. She was still in the hallway, slipping off her shoes and hanging up her jacket or whatever. I figured I'd be quick. Just get bare, throw on my shorts, then head to the living room to crash. But just before putting on my shorts, I remembered I needed to grab my charger from the other side of the bed. So I climbed onto my bed to grab the charger. It was plugged into the wall behind the headboard, making it a bit tricky to unplug smoothly. When I suddenly feel warm in my back door, I turned around to look and saw her going to town like it was the most delicious ice cream ever, and a hand tweaking the joystick. I then realized that getting a raw job along with an H job is the best thing ever, and the fact that a lot of the women I've since met find it nasty frigging sucks. Story 22. So mine is exceptionally strange, at least I think so. I have a liking related to foodstuffs, but the way I obtained it is strange AF. When I was 3, I was watching an episode of Barney, and there was a scene where a girl had her toes counted in song to the tune of 10 little Indians, 1 little, 2 little, 3 little toes, etc. For whatever reason, this completely changed my world. Reactions have been mixed. All my partners thought it was strange. I mean, it is, but some were nice about it. My forever girlfriend has her own set of really strange likings, so I finally have an outlet to be as weird as humanly possible with this, and I count her 10 little toes all the time now. But yeah, I got this liking from Barney and Friends, and love to count toes to the Counting Toes song from that show. I've never met anyone else who got it from that scene, and believe me, I've looked. I guess there is some kind of weird wiring in my brain. Story 23. Years ago, I came across a story about a non-pool trans woman who was constantly essayed by some creepy guy sending dong photos. She didn't even know him or how he got her number. In response, she flipped the script and sent him a photo of her own dong. The guy was totally grossed out. And that's when I realized feminine non-op or pre-op trans women are an absolute gift. For some reason, I never saved the article. It was from a pretty obscure site, so I've never been able to find it again. There was a similar story this year, but the one that really stuck with me was from years ago, and it had uncensored photos. I'm drawn to them because there's something so captivating and almost magical about the contrast. A lean, delicate, feminine body paired with a big, beautiful presence. As a bisexual man, I often say it's the best of both worlds. That said, I believe every dong is incredible in its own way, no matter the size, shape, or unique features. All dongs, especially girl dongs, are a blessing and deserve love and appreciation. Pies are also frigging beautiful. I mean, the human body in general is astonishingly beautiful. I also respect any and everyone's preferences, identities, attributes, and orientations. And if anyone asks to be addressed as a different pronoun or gender, I'll gladly do it. One reason I always encourage people who might be unsure or hesitant about dating a trans person is this: in my experience, some of the most genuine, caring, and emotionally present partners I've known have been trans. Because of the harsh realities of prejudice and societal rejection, there's often a deep fear among trans individuals that they might never be truly loved or accepted. So, when they are given a chance at love, many bring a level of honesty, tenderness, and appreciation to a relationship that's truly remarkable. I've always felt it's important to make sure the people I care about know they're appreciated, supported, loved, and truly desired, especially those who often feel overlooked or misunderstood. Everyone deserves love, no matter their body, identity, preferences, or orientation. That said, I haven't been in a relationship or had a hookup in the past 3 years. I lost the love of my life on what was supposed to be our wedding day, and honestly, I'm still grieving. I miss her deeply, and I'm just not ready to move on yet. Story 24. I've shared this story a few times, but it still makes me laugh. A few years ago, shortly after my kid was born, I took a first aid course over a weekend. On the first day, the instructor asked everyone why they were there. Most people said they were sent by their jobs. I mentioned that while it was work-related for me too, I also wanted to learn infant CPR since I had a newborn at home. That's when the flirty girl in the class made her entrance. Over the course of the day, she started jokingly calling me daddy, clearly playing off what I'd said. She was playful and extremely flirtatious, not just with me, but with pretty much every guy in the room. She had a particular thing for one dude she nicknamed Luke Bryan, because he looked a lot like the country singer. And yes, she made sure everyone knew it. So halfway through day 2 of the course, We were assigned a practical exercise, act out a medical emergency, and have our partner assess and perform the appropriate first aid. Now the instructor was well aware that Luke Bryan was not feeling this girl, so to give the poor guy a break, she made the executive decision to pair me with her instead. Lucky me. My role was to act out a stroke. She had absolutely no clue what was going on and didn't administer any first aid at all, not even a guess. Then it was her turn. We stepped out of the room for a few minutes to prep. When we came back in, there she was, pacing the room, breathing heavily, and with a pillow shoved under her shirt. She was acting out a pregnancy. My task was to provide first aid to a pregnant woman, but I just stood there completely at a loss. Let's just say no medical intervention happened that day. The flirty girl looked at me as I walked up to her and said, "Oh, Daddy," in the most overtly done voice I have ever heard. It awoke something in me, and she kept breathing heavily, letting out the odd moan or groan in between, saying, "I need you," or "Please help me." I just stood there with a stiffy, and I'm sure she knew. We were told the time was up, and I just walked to my seat and sat down. I'd heard people say those things in corn, but I'd never had someone say it like that directly to me, but something stirred in me and it's never died down. Story 25. I thought I was built for the passenger seat. Turns out I supped the one driving the Spice Mobile. My story might be a bit tame compared to others, but here it is. I used to really enjoy the idea of a woman taking charge and leading the way in a relationship. You could say I leaned toward the more easygoing, follow-the-leader type. A part of me still does. But then came my ex, who ended up teaching me a lot about myself. She didn't have much experience when we first got together, so our early moments were all about communication, figuring out what worked for each of us, and building trust along the way. Over time, I noticed something interesting. The more confident and directive I was, the more she seemed to enjoy it. What started as guidance turned into something more dynamic, where I found myself stepping into a more assertive role. It was mutual, respectful, and always grounded in clear communication and consent. We even had a safe word in place, just to make sure we stayed on the same page. That experience helped me discover a new side of myself. I thought I was naturally more submissive, but it turns out I'm more of a take-the-lead kind of person. Funny how relationships can teach you so much, isn't it? I still think about her sometimes and appreciate everything I learned through our time together. Story 26. I was on Cornhub one time and seen a thumbnail of a girl that had similar hair to my wife's. I clicked on it, and I swear, she could have been my wife, at very least her identical twin. It wasn't my wife, nor does she have a twin, but it looks exactly like my wife. She even thought so. In the video, she was working in a group project and appeared to really be enjoying herself. The first time I watched it, my heart broke because I truly thought it may have been my wife, but by the 10th time, I kinda got excited about it. And by the 50th time, I was actually really up and charged. It was one hell of a roller coaster of emotions. Story 27. Back in my early 20s, I was hanging out with this slightly older married couple, just drinking and having a blast. The wife worked with special needs teens, and somehow, maybe a dare or losing a game, I ended up having to wear one of the diapers she brought from work. I was pretty skinny back then. Okay, I still am, so it actually fit. Let's just say, it gave me some unexpected time for self-reflection. The husband couldn't stop laughing and kept calling me cute. Spoiler alert, I did end up spending the night with both of them. Fast forward more than 10 years, and now I've got a storage tote full of things that would definitely require me to move states away if anyone I know ever found them. Story 28. At first, my story started pretty simple. I had my first major crush on a girl who always wore colorful tights, navy blue, red, pink, purple, white, black, paired with a mid-length skirt to stick to the school's business, casual dress code, not a Catholic school or anything. Unfortunately, she turned me down when I asked her out on Valentine's Day and didn't want to talk to me afterward. Still, I kept a strong affection for girls who wore stockings, tights, pantyhose, and the like. Well, being a young and curious, and discovering the World Wide Web and good old corn, I came across many different types of corn, but mostly I stuck with what most guys liked, with a tights or stockings at the end of every search. And voila, I started to come across a variety of different corn that involved hosiery, which led to feet. Then in college, I dated a few girls who had their own unique likings, which helped me explore my own desires even more. To this day, I stay pretty open whenever the topic of likings or fantasies comes up. I always throw in a little disclaimer. Sure, it sometimes get a bad rap, but hey, who can say no to free foot massages? It's both a blessing and a curse sometimes. With all the seasons changing, my likings keeps me on my toes. Honestly, I still can't quite pinpoint why feet catch my eye more than any other part. Though I do have a thing for buns, they look amazing in stockings. Story 29. I had a pacifier hanging on my corkboard from the year I dressed up as a toddler for Halloween. One day my girlfriend at the time saw it while we were chilling on the bed and asked if she could see me try it. I hesitated but said, okay, since I'm used to chewing on things like straws and pens. She clipped it to my shirt and gently put it in my mouth, and before I knew it, she was really into it. Later, she bought me an adult-sized pacifier and introduced the idea of bottle feeding, which I surprisingly enjoyed. The feeling of letting go and being a gentle nodder was new to me. That was just the beginning. We're no longer together but remain close friends, and I haven't really felt the urge to explore that side of things with anyone else since. My adult pacifier still hangs proudly on my corkboard. Story 30. I honestly have too many stories to count, but if I had to pick one that stands out the most, there was a girl who lived down the street, about a year younger than me. Her brother was a couple of years younger too. She was the kind of girl who liked to dare each other into silly challenges. You know, the "I'll show you mine if you show me yours" type of game. This was before the internet was a thing, so we spent most of our time playing outside with the other kids. At some point, we started daring each other to drink a ton of water without going inside. No one ever actually went through with it, but I do remember daring her to pee outside once. She went around to the other side of a car parked in the driveway, and I couldn't see much, just the splashing sound. Years later, a memory from that time came back more clearly. It had been a long day at the beach, and we were sitting in the back seat of my parents' pickup truck, thinking we were being super sneaky, though we really weren't. Mandy and I were in that stage where we were discovering ourselves and figuring out what felt exciting. We hadn't crossed any serious lines yet, and were still figuring things out slowly. Mandy was shy and bookish, while I was more adventurous and always pushing boundaries. One day I tried to be subtle and get a little closer to her without anyone noticing. She was wearing these tight tan board shorts that she wasn't completely comfortable in, but wore them anyway because she knew I liked them. They were snug and made her look cute in a way that caught my attention. That day, though, she was acting differently. She kept squirming away from me, which was unusual. We were covered with a blanket to be stealthy, so I couldn't figure out why she was pulling away. After a few minutes, she whispered to me that she really had to use the bathroom. That moment was kind of intense for me. It showed a side of her I hadn't really seen before. I stopped trying to get closer and instead just held her hand, and she leaned into me, trying to stay comfortable on the long drive home. When we got to my parents' house, I thought she'd rush inside, but she hung around a little while longer. I offered to drive her home, and she accepted. On the way to her place, we were quieter than usual. Maybe tired from the day or just caught up in the moment. Once we arrived, we said our goodbyes and I headed home, thinking about that strange but memorable day. We pulled into her driveway and I reached over, about to unbuckle her, when Mandy stopped me. "I'm really sorry, but I have to pee so badly," she said, already starting to get out of the car. In what felt like my bravest moment, I nervously asked, "Can I wait here?" She was halfway out the door but called back, "Sure, if my parents aren't home. Wait here," and quickly ran inside. It felt like forever while I waited. I thought about leaving. If her parents were home, it would be suspicious for her to come back outside and tell me to go away. If they weren't home, it would be strange for me to just sit in the driveway. Eventually, I saw her front door open, and she waved me in hurriedly. We headed straight for the back bathroom. My heart was pounding. She held my hand, leading me through the house. I couldn't help but notice her tan skin, long brown hair, and the way she moved. Then, instead of turning toward the bathroom, she went into her bedroom. I figured she was grabbing something and waited at the doorway. She paced around for a moment, then grabbed a towel and set it on the floor. Standing over it, she looked right at me. I was nervous. This was something new and unexpected. I wondered if she was uncomfortable or judging me. I hesitated and said, I'd be fine just watching you go to the bathroom normally. But before I could finish, she smiled shyly and said, too late, blushing as she relaxed. She accidentally let a little leak through her shorts. She bent down to look at herself, then touched her shorts to check. It was a strange, unforgettable moment, different from anything we'd done before. Feeling overwhelmed, I knelt down quietly nearby, trying to process everything. I remember the details clearly, as if it were a vivid memory. After a while, I realized it was time to leave. If her parents came home and found me there alone, it would be trouble. I managed to say, that was one of the most memorable things I've ever seen, and that's arguably still true today. Story 31. I'm not sure if this counts as a preference or just a strong admiration, but I've always found women with extensive tattoos incredibly captivating. I'm not talking about a few tiny designs here and there. I mean full sleeves, detailed work across arms, hands, neck, even down to the hips. There's just something fascinating about seeing skin transformed into a living canvas. Over the years, I've realized how drawn I am to that aesthetic. It's bold, expressive, and tells a story without a single word. I recently watched a video featuring a heavily tattooed woman who was struggling to get anyone to acknowledge her while asking for directions. The point was to highlight the stigma that still exists for people with visible tattoos, and all I could think was how much I'd love to take her out for dinner and just hear her story. Story 32. Met a girl at work. She had these striking blue eyes and dark hair. Really stood out. We talked for about a month, just casual conversation, and I guess she realized I was too awkward to make a move. So she asked for my number instead. She called a few times, we got pretty friendly, and eventually she invited me over to her place for New Year's. I went over, we hung out, got a bit relaxed, and ended up in her room. Things were getting a little more intimate when she suddenly paused and said, hang on a sec. She pulled me out, hopped out of bed, did something I wasn't paying attention to because I was feeling pretty stoned. Then she climbed back in bed, grabbed my dong, and puts it back in, but it felt different. It took a bit of patience, but we got there. Then, with a voice smooth and warm like honey, she looked at me and said, all right, let's go. I reached down, and yup, she put it in her back door herself, without me thinking to ask, because holy damn, she wanted it. And now, almost 20 years later, I'm all about women who like to put things in their back door. Story 33. I'm not sure if it really counts, since it wasn't a single accidental discovery, and instead it's more of a gradual realization, but with the years and years of corn behind me, I slowly but surely realized that basically my fantasy is love and devotion to each other, or to be more precise, that's kind of the core of my fantasy, and thus I'm into stuff generally associated with that. Which is also probably a big reason why I'm generally more into adult manga, since the real-life corn is generally very strictly just about the doing it, and most of it is just very cold and generic, while with this type of anime, there's so much and such a huge variation. Plus the story context there actually still matters, and is believable that there's plenty of wholesome ones as well, which is just great. Story 34. My girlfriend and I hit a rough patch and broke up for about a week. During that time, I found out she had tried to start something with a coworker. After we talked things through and got back together, she opened up about what had happened. She told me about how she tried to get him in bed. They ended up doing nothing, but she still asked for permission to bang him. She then asked me how I would have felt if it had. By the time she was done, I was sporting a stiffy that would have made Zeus jealous. And yeah, let's just say the tension between us definitely shifted. She reached for my hand. Things got quiet for a moment, and the next thing I knew, all that built-up energy just hit all at once. Story 35. I don't know if there is an exact name, but I suppose there is no harm in telling my story. So while browsing the web for anything I could solo it to about 4 years ago, I found the infamous Kelly Divine video. No, not that one. It's the one where she uses the butter sticks in her back door, and a guy keeps alternating between her front and back door. Fast forward to 5 months ago, I met a petite redhead. Another feature that I like, who would give me blowies and asks me to help her fill her pies with cream. I did that so many times, I don't know how she didn't get pregnant. I wouldn't have cared. I literally couldn't be around her for more than 5 minutes without nearly getting dizzy from carrying a ramrod. She moved back home shortly after we met because I kinda got scared and pushed her away. This taught me a very important life lesson I wish I had learned sooner. I used to be really down on myself and didn't think I was handsome, but ever since this girl rocked my world, I look at myself and life completely differently. I get a fair bit more attention now because I carry myself with much more confidence. I can thank her enough for curing me of myself and showing me life has so much to offer. If you believe my story or not, I don't care. I want anyone who reads this to start believing in themselves so you can join me on the Big O train headed straight to Mars. Peace, love, and really good banging to you all. Story 36. I was in a long and emotionally frustrating marriage. Despite doing my best to be a supportive and caring partner, intimacy had nearly disappeared. Over time, even simple things like cuddling or connecting emotionally became rare, and that left me feeling unwanted and invisible. This went on for over a decade. About 4 years ago, after yet another moment of rejection, I found myself turning to online content for comfort and escape. It was during that time I came across someone who completely caught me off guard, a woman who was confident, beautiful, who had it all plus a dong. Thus, my liking and attraction to trans women was born. Story 37. I was at the dog park with my pup, chatting with a few folks. One woman stood out. She was probably in her mid to late 40s, really put together, and had a confident vibe. At one point, she leaned down to pet my dog and said, "Aren't you adorable? Looks like your daddy takes extra good care of you." It was such a simple comment, but the way she said it caught me off guard. It wasn't in a cutesy pet voice, more genuine, almost playful. I'd never been referred to like that before, and for whatever reason, it stuck with me. I got a stiffy almost instantly. Story 38. My ex would almost give me daily blowies to ease my cravings. I'm pretty sure I'm one of those people who are constantly excited and charged, though I haven't been diagnosed, which are frequent and makes it hard for me to focus on complex tasks. Well, my girlfriend got used to the taste of my smoothie and would start jokingly saying that certain foods she ate would pair well with the taste of my smoothie. A few days later, she had me mix it into her strawberries in a burger, and watching her ecstatically eat food with my smoothie would instantly give me stiffy. Sadly, I have yet to find a woman since who even is actively interested in having my smoothie, let alone want to have it as a condiment to her meal. Story 39. I am female, and I have a thing for whipping up a creepy with consequences. Even though I'm on birth control now, there's something deeply intimate about the idea of creating life together that still resonates with me. I think this feeling began during my first pregnancy. Before that, I hadn't really given it much thought. Our daughter wasn't planned, but she was deeply wanted. I was in awe of the fact that we had created a life together, that his DNA was a part of the child growing inside me. It brought a whole new level of connection and closeness between us. Seeing how my body changed, knowing it was because of something we created together, made me feel incredibly bonded to him. It felt like a powerful mix of vulnerability and protection. I was carrying his child, and he was always there, caring for me and supporting me through the process. That experience left a lasting emotional imprint on me. Since then, we've had another child, this time planned, and the feelings were just as strong. Although I'm not planning on becoming pregnant again, there's still something deeply symbolic and meaningful to me about the idea of creating life with someone you love. It represents a kind of connection and influence that's both powerful and profoundly intimate. Story 40. I used to DJ for an online radio station. Alongside co-hosting the 90s and industrial nights, I also had my own show with a unique theme each week. For example, a night at the symphony featured tracks that incorporated symphonies, orchestras, or choirs, while the history of ska took listeners on a chronological journey through the genre, from its origins to the present day. Well, as I was going through my industrial collection one night and noticed a theme I could use for my wildcard set, so I put the track list together and wrote out my program notes, where even my commentary had a heavy theme regarding unconventional bedroom activities. The show was a hit, and apparently I was so good with my commentary and song segues introductions that I was mistaken for someone who was very into that sort of thing. During the set, I received a lot of very racy and flirtatious messages. I ended up connecting with those who messaged me, and relationship developed from that. It was absolutely amazing, and vanilla was never the same. Story 41. During my junior year of college, I really hit it off with this girl I met at a party. We kept running into each other throughout the night, and eventually I got her contact info. We hung out a few times and had a great time, and one night when we were both free, I invited her over to watch a movie from my baller futon. I believe I tickled her fairly early on, until we wound up in a position where it was fairly natural for me to hold her hand. She seemed really into it. And honestly, I was excited, still am really, about being that close to someone so cool and attractive. The movie was probably good, but all I could focus on was how amazing it felt just to hold her hand. I was definitely nervous, but inside I was thinking, no way am I going to miss the chance to kiss her. So of course, I kissed her. Probably a bit awkwardly, but she reciprocated, and all my anxiety melted away, replaced by pure happiness and excitement. The movie became just background noise as we naturally grew closer. Things progressed, and she got very close to me in a way that felt completely new and intense, closer than I'd ever experienced before. It's important to mention that while I'd been attracted to my previous partners, this girl was exceptionally stunning, and our connection was playful and fun in a way that stood out. I had always been careful before getting that close, making sure everything was safe and clear, never taking any risks. This time, though, as she got even closer, a small concern lingered in the back of my mind. There was a bit of uncertainty, since nothing was being said about safety. I was a little nervous, especially knowing how popular and attractive she was, but at that moment, all I could focus on was how incredible the connection felt. Before I knew it, I was feeling something warm and exciting as we got closer, and neither of us brought up using protection. At that moment, I figured there was no point worrying about it. Honestly, it felt so much more intense and real than I'd ever experienced before. Something about that closeness made everything feel better. We were together for a while, sharing kisses and closeness. I had never reached that peak from just being intimate before, but now it felt like it was getting close. I mentioned to her that I was nearing that point, and though I don't remember if she said much, she definitely responded by pulling me even closer. It was by far the best I'd ever felt in my life. Even though I wasn't sure if she was on birth control since she was comfortable and willing, I just went with it, feeling completely in the moment. I remember thinking that if anything came from that connection, it wouldn't be a problem. We were that close. Afterward, we talked and confirmed that we had both been tested and that she was on birth control. The health part is something I won't skip asking about again, but the experience itself really opened my eyes. The idea of that kind of connection, knowing there's a real possibility of creating life, has become something very meaningful to me. What really stands out as an intense scenario in my mind is the idea of us being careful, using protection, and then something unexpected happens, like the rubber breaking. That's actually happened to me before, but it was immediately obvious, so I just switched it out. But in this version, I imagine telling her what happened, and even though she's not on birth control, she's so caught up in the moment that she says to just go with it. The thought of that kind of raw, spontaneous passion really gets to me. I don't even know if it counts as a full-on fantasy. Maybe it's just human instinct kicking in, but either way, it's a powerful fantasy. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.